the button on YouTube. Okay, we're live. Meeting's yours, Mr. Chair.
Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Lyon Township Planning Commission meeting for Monday, May 24th, 2021. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the
to the
flag
flag
of the United States of
America
America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
one
under
nation,
God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty,
liberty
justice
and justice for all.
for all. All right, very good. Catherine, if you call roll, please.
Patricia Carponi,
Present in Lyon Township, Michigan.
Jim Chuck,
present, Lyon Township, Oakland County, Michigan.
Michael Conflitti,
Present, Lyon Township, Michigan.
Bronco Mikovsky,
President, Lyon Township, Michigan.
Ron Pennington.
He's
Not
absent.
here.
Absent.
All right. Kurt Radke
Present, Lyon Township, Michigan.
and Carl Town.
President, Lyon Township, Michigan.
Okay.
Catherine,
like I said,
excellent.
thank you. That was all I needed to do. So I'll leave you guys to your meeting.
Thanks for hanging
Thanks,
out.
Catherine.
All
Hi,
right,
Catherine.
thank you.
See you tomorrow.
Bye. Yep,
Bye.
sure
Do
thing.
we need to make a motion
but-
to excuse?
Oh,
We do.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to excuse Ron Pennington.
I'll support.
We have motion by Mr.
Chuck.
Chuck, support by Patricia Carcone. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, approval of tonight's agenda.
Make a
Move
motion to
approval.
approve.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Town, support. I wasn't sure. I'll give that to Mr. Radke.
Yeah, we can
All
get
those in
it.
favor?
Aye.
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 Oppose? Approval of consent agenda from the May, I don't have the date. What was our last meeting? May
14 days from now would have been the 10th, I guess.
the 10th?
Simple math. I make a motion to approve the minute.
I support that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Oppose? Okay, very good. Tina's not here tonight, is she? I don't think
No, I
so.
don't think so.
Brian, do we have anyone waiting to speak? Comments
No,
from the
no
public?
callers. Nope.
We don't. Okay. All right, very good. Brian, if you lead us off here.
I will. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I wanted to share a couple things with you as we progress through the master plan. The first being the survey results that were in your packet. I am just going to, I don't want to talk through all the sections, but I do want to highlight a couple different things. So any of the public watching this can get an idea of the progress that we've made. In terms of the total responses, we have just under 1,000 responses started and just under 700 total responses that completed the entire survey. So I'm pretty excited about that from a response standpoint. It was open just over a month, so that's pretty good. But one of the questions that we asked at the onset was, where do you live? And so this is where our respondents are. You can see quite a few in some of our newer subdivisions, but a fair representation in the New Hudson area also. So
Oh,
pretty excited about that. That kind of bears out a little bit too when we look at the duration that people have lived. We're starting to break these things down a little bit by these zip codes then. So how long folks have lived here. The shortest being the Wixom area, which is an interesting stat to me. I thought that was a little strange that 63% of the respondents in our Wixom zip code have lived here 5 years or less. But a fair amount here also, 68% have lived in the South Lyon zip code for less than 10 years. So Kind of cool. I like this graphic representation, and we might put more of these into the finished document just because I think it illustrates some things about the various areas of the township.
That's awesome, Brian.
You like this as a
Yeah,
as
I
a
like it a
tool?
lot. And you know what? I like the colors. It's very clear.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, very clear, very
I've
nice.
seen some, you can't tell the difference between the shades of gray.
Yep.
And I don't mean 50, so stop that.
Mhm.
Well, we may tweak some of these a little bit in terms of color and representation and text size and that kind of stuff because we want this to fit in the nice finished document really well. But we could also include a lot of them as an appendix too. So that's an option that we have so that they don't break up the flow of the final master plan when we get there. I do think that we'll show a lot of the like top 3 lists in a format similar to this. So, you know, the 3 favorite things that people liked about the township or living in the township is their access to natural features and open space, the rural character, and the schools. So those were our trends there.
Brian, can I interject something?
Of course.
A while back, I'm sure, I hope maybe somebody else saw it. It was on the internet, but it was also in the Detroit News. So, you know, you take half from each. But South Lyon schools, high schools, they checked, I think there's like 1,800 high schools in the state. South Lyon schools came in like 46th. So it is a very good school district. And I just wanted to, you know, interject that. Obviously, schools are important. And that was one of our, you know, most important reasons for people moving here. Well, they got that question right.
Very nice.
Hey, Brian,
Yes,
can you
sir.
go back to your other graph?
Yeah.
That one, Wixom, you have a number off before you release it publicly.
Number
Yeah.
off.
Nobody,
Oh, your percentages add up to 101.
August. And
Mm.
same applies for the bowling alley, would be September.
Okay,
We can get
good catch. We will correct that. I wonder if my other maps, nope, that one's 100%. Okay, so we'll get those numbers accurate, of course, before these go public. You know, the other question that I thought was interesting was how important was a complete sidewalk network for you? I found it interesting because of how consistent this was across the board. Milford being a little bit of an outlier, although some of those subdivisions, they don't have sidewalks. They also have very close access to the trails, so they may not see the need for it. They do see the need for it. And then finally, this is always one of our hot topics when we're talking about any development, whether it's residential or commercial, but how concerned are you with encroachment into your neighborhood? Whether it's just a corner store, whether it's a larger big box, seems pretty much across the board, everybody is similarly concerned about a separation between commercial and residential uses. So for what that's worth, we're united as a township when it comes to some of these issues.
Hey, Brian,
Yes.
in your past history, or maybe some of your other communities that you have now, would you say that's pretty consistent? I mean, you look at that, it's 50-50 basically, 51-40, you know, I'm just going by red, and then some are somewhat concerned and some are not concerned at all. So would you say that's pretty consistent?
I would say it's a little bit unusual, but I chalk some of that up to the size of our zoning or our zip codes here too. You know, if we were talking about just New Hudson, for example, you know, New Hudson proper within the ring road, I think we'd see that this concerns number might go down as
Mhm.
residents there expect some level of commercial services near them, so they'd be less concerned. And that is something that I would expect to see in a more urban neighborhood more than a suburban.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, and then the last one that I want to talk about was a little bit of a trend that we noticed. The longer anybody was a resident within the township, you ended up with a higher perception of growth in the township. So the less you're here, the more accustomed you are to the speed of development. And I think that makes some sense from a common sense standpoint, but it was interesting to see the data bear that out as well. So those are really the only things that I wanted to hit on specifically that we've presented. I did include the full survey results. If you had a chance to parse through that, good for you, because there's a lot of questions there. Because of the way that I framed the survey, I'm going to stop sharing. Because of the way that I framed the survey, it revolved a lot around what our existing goals and objectives are in the master plan. And really, there was only one goal that stuck out to me that we really need to consider removing from the last plan. It's kind of encouraging, quite honestly, that that a lot of those goals and objectives were not met with any opposition. The only one that was people were vehemently opposed to was selecting a new site for the post office if it remained in New Hudson. So I think if it's okay with you, I may remove that as a goal of the master plan, and everything else there would stay the same. And then in terms of updating I do want to add one new section of goals to the plan, and that relates to all of the current trends type issues. Carl and I were talking a little bit about the data that showed that, Carl, I don't remember I don't have the exact table in front of me, but something like 20% of the respondents thought they'd have an electric vehicle within the next year. Those kind of goals or those kind of questions, I think, are going to maybe inform some of the goals, or in that case, not inform a goal that we're going to have in the plan for encouraging electric infrastructure in our plans, things like that. So I will come prepared when it comes to a full draft of the plan to address some of these survey results. And the other thing that I want to do with these survey results is translate them into some boards, big boards, to have at the Kite Fest, so that we can actually have a conversation with the public that are there about, hey, these are what your neighbors, what your business owners suggested in the survey. How do you feel about that? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are you one of the ones who responded this way, and why? Those sorts of conversations I'm pretty excited for. So that'll
I'm
be
sure
good.
you get some good feedback too, Brian, on, you certainly will have the people there. Obviously make sure they're within the township, because we get people from all over the 3-county area. So
Sure.
it won't all be people from our neck of the woods, but you'll get a lot of locals. Yes.
Well, that's a good point. Jim, one of the exercises that I want to bring is it's called "What's Your Big Idea?" And it's basically, I want people to write on a sticky note what their idea is for the township and put it on a board. And at the start of the day, you start to see kind of trickles of information put up there. But an hour into it, you're going to have a big rainbow of colors and things like that. People get to see what everybody else is writing down. So that's kind of a fun exercise. And maybe I'll do, actually, I know this is how I'm going to handle it. I'll give residents one color, Wayne County residents a different color, Oakland County outside of Lyon Township another, so that we can pretty quickly see where our respondents are from.
That's a great idea. Yep.
So So that'll be fun.
Because as you know, this county is growing, and I think everyone sitting here can say the same thing. When I do sit on the tax review board, I say, where'd you come from? Livonia, Westland, Redford, Canton. I mean, they're all coming to our county. So, and I was one of them. You know, I spent 45 years in Wayne County, and now I've been here 15 years. But that would be good to know where they're from. That's a good idea. Good exercise.
That math doesn't add up, Jim.
What's that?
That math doesn't add up.
Well, I didn't count when I was a kid and didn't have any.
Did any commissioners find any surprises in the survey? No surprises.
No, I wasn't surprised at all.
There's a couple, and like question 3 about opportunities to improve, where cost of housing was like at the very bottom. You know, affordable housing. I know a lot of the meetings people talk about affordable housing, but that was hardly even on the radar in this survey. That one, and number 24, talking about different residents, large, medium, small, apartments, townhouses, less than 1% of the, and that also. So it seems like from the survey, people are interested in large homes, large to medium homes. Cost not an issue, not interested in townhouses and apartments. Is that true, Brian, what you see in these numbers?
Well, I think that the not concerned with the cost of housing does not surprise me. It doesn't surprise me because most of our respondents are already here. They've figured out a way to either buy their house or rent, and it works with their budget and things like that. So that one doesn't particularly surprise me. It does surprise me a lot that people aren't thinking about smaller or different or alternative living situations. You know, we saw Orchard Crossing and Lombardo propose duplex units, which I think, quite honestly, are sorely needed in terms of township housing stock, and other options like that are going to be good for the township in the long run, even if that's not going to make up the majority of living units that we have here. So it did surprise me a little bit to see that it was that low. Didn't surprise me that it was not a high priority.
Anyway, good information.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's good information. I think it confirms a lot of the things that we hear on a regular basis. You know, there's no major surprises. So status
Nice
quo is
work,
good.
Brian.
That means the planning commission and the board are doing what they should do, and doing what the people want. So that's good.
And we've got great planner and yourself.
Well, maybe Chris. This is the fruits of Chris's labor. How about that?
Yeah, well, your firm.
I haven't been
all you guys.
I haven't been around long enough to take that credit. So okay, so that's where we're at on that. I'm going to shift gears then, and I want to talk future land use because I think that it bears a lot of discussion. We're not going to make any decisions or determinations tonight, but I want to show you the general idea of where I'm headed with our future land use plan. So first things first, I'd like to, you saw in my memo, potentially the changes that I'd like to make in our future land use class designations. So one of the things, as a refresher, the future land use map is really our long range guide for the township. And so all of these categories are meant to make it easy for the regulations to change our future plan. And when it comes down to our previous future land use designations, I think there were some that just didn't make a lot of sense to remain in the plan moving forward. Things like this low density multiple family housing as a future land use classification wasn't even on the map anywhere. We had the classification, but we had no designation on the map. So I wanted to strike things like that. I also think that the ties between office and research type uses are so close these days, and what we expect to see from a development standpoint, I'd like to lump those sorts of things together so that we're creating an easier to understand map. The other thing that that allows us to do is it gives us a little bit more flexibility and freedom when it does come to changing the zoning districts. So you can see here, I've lumped office and research together, and I'm giving us 3 categories for any property that falls within our office and research on the future land use map. We could rezone to any of these 3 designations and be supported by our future land use plan. Going back to the 2012 model, if we do just research office, we can support 1 zoning district, and that's what we're stuck with. And that can work, but it does limit our flexibility. It limits us a little bit in terms of market changes and things like that. So in general, I like the ability to be a little bit more broad and flexible on those. You'll also notice that in our corresponding zoning districts list here, I've added mixed use into a couple different categories here. And my goal and my hope here is to encourage some creative thinking from developers if they want to integrate some living and working spaces, for instance. You know, a small business owner wants their retail location on the first floor and wants to live above it or have their office space above it. Those are uses that I think can mix really well. And so I want us to be able to have that as a viable option. So I've started to include that a little bit as well. The final thing that I want to talk about here is, if you're familiar with our 2015 amendment, we had 6 single family classifications. We had A, B, C, and D. A stays the same here in this proposed list. B previously was R10 with a density bonus. And so we were shooting for anywhere between 1.25 and 2 units an acre. I just have a problem with calling out in our future land use plan the fact that we would consider a project with a density bonus. I think that puts us in a little bit of a gray area when it comes to considering a plan development or considering a rezoning or things like that. It's less clear what we're looking for. So my goal here is to get rid of that single family, what was B before, get rid of a reference to a R10 with a density bonus, and just pare this down to 3 single family classifications. So is there any issues with that or any potential hazards that jump out to you on that?
I think it's good. It takes away some of the ambiguity of you know, the gray area. I think what you did there made sense.
Good. Okay, well, this is the direction I'm going to go. Once I flesh it out and get it up on the map, and I also have to define each one of these classifications for you to put into the plan. We can make changes at that point. But for now, this is how I want to go. Okay, I'm going.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
The townhouse district. We don't have a townhouse district, but I'm pretty sure we have properties that are zoned for suburban townhouse. I believe one of them is on, we had it come before us a while ago on Pontiac Trail, next to Lombardo development, the first Lombardo.
There is a little,
It's like 6 acres or something.
yep. I know exactly the one that you are talking about.
So we really got to think about what we want to do on the future land use with that designation. So if everybody could get on their thinking cap on that piece, yep.
Yeah, it's just north of Saddle Creek. You're on the
Yep.
west side.
Yes, it is, yep. I couldn't think of the name of Saddle Creek.
On the west side. Oh, okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
Just something to think about for our future land use. I agree that that's probably the only one that I'm aware of. Of course, I'm not a planner, so I don't know the map that well. But we should think about that parcel, what we should have it designated as in the future land use. Everybody agree?
Yeah. It's
Yes.
Brian,
Yeah, good point.
Brian, didn't he take us to court for that parcel?
Well, I don't know the history on it, Patty. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's something about that parcel. There's something about that parcel. I mean,
Okay.
it's been a long time.
Yeah.
but he
There was going to
wanted,
be a daycare in there,
he wanted it to be
and she
something.
backed out.
What is it zoned at right now?
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
It's RM1 right now.
Yes, Carl, that's what it was. Yep.
But there's
RM2.
something. There's something about that parcel. I just can't remember, but I remember him coming before the township board. I wasn't on the planning commission then, but there was something about that parcel because he didn't want it to go to residential.
Yeah, we had never heard anything about it, but again, I just thought of it. When
Yeah,
he
you
brought up
you better check
the
on that.
townhouse. Yep.
Make sure there's nothing attached. You know what I'm saying? That we don't violate anything. There's just
Yeah.
something about that parcel. I can't remember. Has that long building on it.
Used to be, it's torn down.
Well, yeah, but there's a reason. I just cannot remember, but anyways, I'm just saying check on it because in case there's something about it.
Sure.
I will. Ooh, okay. Okay. Wanted to shift gears here then to a couple places. I included this highlighted map in the packet because from the outset, I think there's a couple places that we need to spend some time on. I mentioned we don't have to get to them all tonight, but a few things that either jump out as we know that they're going to come because we've had pre-application meetings or we've had actual applications that the Planning Commission has considered, and then others that just seem like they don't fit any longer. I want to start with the golf courses. So, you know, we've had the application on Coyote Golf Course, but even the past master plan talked about knowing that the golf courses are all going to change at some point or could, just because we have so many in terms of supply. And so, you know, it would not surprise me if we get an application on cattails soon. We've had a couple pre-application meetings on a project there. We've heard rumblings in terms of Riverbank and then Coyote. So from a future land use standpoint, I think Riverbank and cattails seem pretty straightforward. And please correct me if I'm wrong and jump in, but the intended character there today it continues to be R10 zoning, 1 acre density. and really no commercial uses unless they happen to really directly support any residential development. But that would be in really, really limited supply and very select. So I think those two seem straightforward to me in terms of being correct in the density that
Agreed.
we'd expect. The Coyote one, though, kind of ties into the larger question about the Milford corridor between 12 Mile and south of the trail being the black dashed line that we have here.
Mhm.
Now that we don't have an application in front of us in terms of the golf course, I'd be curious to know if it's appropriate to consider any changes to the density that we would expect, particularly along the Milford Road frontage in the northwest corner here. I think it was pretty loud and clear from all of the minutes and everything from those, from the consideration of this project, that most of the site, the 1 acre zoning was appropriate for that. And again, correct me if I'm wrong.
And Carl, jump in, but as I recall, the further north you went, they were going to have the larger lots, 1 acre, as it basically backs up to the golf course. But as you went north toward Grand River, I believe the density was going to change. Do you recall that, Carl? They weren't all going to be 1 acre lots, as I recall. The more the estates were going to be backed up to the golf course. And then as we went further north, they were going to be more like 0.5.
In the plan that somebody wanted to bring forward?
Yes, I mean, that's as I recall it. I was on the planning commission when that happened, and that's going back into Lanny's years, but
Yeah, again,
That's what I recall.
We were looking at industrial property. And
Right.
backing up to all the industrial properties. So, I mean, that's zone, what's the zoning, what's that orange zoning to make sure, Brian, on the Wallbridge property, yeah?
Yeah, this is the future land use plan, so it's moderate to high multiple family is the
Multiple
orange
family.
dotted.
yeah.
But that came from the was it Parkside Village? Is that what that was called, Patty? That was
Yeah.
before my time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So then when they came with the Coyote proposal, they were suggesting that we move this density down to the south onto the golf course property.
well, the issue, as we know, and I can't really speak to the density change there until we come up with a corridor plan. And we also need a corridor plan, and not to avoid this, but just while I'm thinking about it, for 8 Mile. We've done a really good job on 10 Mile. I think with this master plan, we need a Milford Road corridor. And I totally agree with you. And I think once we resolve that, then we can get into the issues of the changing the zoning, maybe on the Coyote property. You know, if we're changing that and making a setback similar to 10 Mile Road of 60 or 65 feet, you know, then it'd be worth it to change the zoning on some of that property. That's my thought. And we got to act fast on the 8 Mile corridor too. So far, it's been good. It looks good, what we've got going in. But we got to keep it consistent and maybe put it in the master plan, future land use. That's all I have to say.
You're talking down like Windridge, Devonshire, this area, as it continues to go west.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, but we have the right general densities along there. It's just, you're talking more
Yes.
the aesthetic corridor,
Yes.
kind of like the 10 Mile planting plans and everything
Yes,
that's in place today. Yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
Keep it consistent.
Yeah, and 10 Mile does look nice. Came out very nice.
Okay. Okay, but moving back up to Milford though, so I'm hearing Carl say this is probably an appropriate density still for this site.
Yeah, after thinking about it a little more, Brian, I agree. The polka dot or the dotted area, yeah, that's higher density, larger density, golf course going north. So yeah, that makes sense. I think it could play. Yeah.
The thing that jumps out to me, because it's very clear from the 2015 update that this Parkside Village, everybody thought that was going to be approved. Like they were through preliminary, and there are a lot of references to it, saying things like, once Parkside Village is approved, the Milford corridor will XYZ. So it was written clearly with the expectation that that was going to proceed. But looking at it as I've driven down there recently and just looking at the transition, or maybe clunky transition, as you get out of New Hudson, get into these couple industrial buildings on the west and into Mill River and Abbey Park and all of that, seems to me that maybe this intermediate portion needs to have a bit more mixed use or transitional nature, whether that's some of our RM1 districts, or maybe it has a research component, or maybe it has more of a true mixed use designation like we have on the west side. Even understanding that Continental probably isn't going to go, I think that the east side is ripe for potential, and I don't think that it's truly going to go residential. Maybe portions of it will, but I don't see this large of a piece of the Walbridge property being transitioning to high density residential.
I thought he has a plan in.
Walbridge?
I've seen it.
Well, we've talked, yes, but it does not involve residential in the middle here. It's basically
It went all the way to Milford Road.
yeah, we've talked to Adorno about that and have made some suggestions not to do a through road, because
Right,
we want to
keep it-
we want to keep industrial heading east to South Hill and using that stoplight rather than adding traffic to Milford Road. So I guess what I'm hinting at is, I think there really probably should be a line of demarcation, maybe where my cursor is right now, saying the frontage on Milford Road should be smaller scale things, whether that's industrial or whether that is office or some sort of research component or things along those lines. Or residential if he wants it to be, but it certainly wouldn't be, half to more than half of that Walbridge property. I don't see it going that way.
What project was it? I thought it was Cambridge Homes. I was looking at that, and they were looking at a multifamily along Milford, and as you got farther east, and that the homes became estate homes.
This
1 acre.
Lombardo.
Was it Lombardo?
Mhm.
And then there was
That's what I
the
remember,
issue.
Mike. Yeah, I knew there was estates homes in this conglomerate.
The
Yeah,
further back you got into the development, the houses got larger. But the issue too was the Continental, the odors in that area. And wasn't that one of the issues?
that's why he didn't go through with it. Yes, the
Yeah.
odor.
Wasn't that a similar plan for Coyote, where they were trying to get the density from the density that's across from Continental moved down so you could get more density on Coyote?
Yes, it was apartments where my cursor is, and then duplexes in this area, and then the rest was larger, like 1 acre density.
That's what I thought. Yep.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, because where your cursor is now, Continental, the way the wind is, it doesn't necessarily affect them. As you go further south, that higher density is where the aluminum, the occasional smell, even though it was within regulations, it just was an annoying odor. Yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
Well, Brian, how much weight do you put into the survey? I mean, townhouses and apartments is the exact opposite of what the people want that took the survey.
It's interesting, Mike. I struggle with that a little bit because there is, from a development standpoint or the developer's standpoint, there is very clearly a market for townhomes or apartments or a higher density type product. We see that with Watermark. We've had some interest from some residential developers over here on the east side of the ring road. So we're at least having initial discussions with folks who are interested in those types of products. I think the comments that we're getting from the survey that say we don't want that anymore, I think their opinions are certainly valid. I think there's a contrast there, though, between what is feasible and a potential reality in the market versus what our existing residents want. So that to me tells me we need to focus more on the impacts of these new developments, still plan for the things that we know are coming or we know are going to be market driven, but kind of protect ourselves and give ourselves some tools to counteract any impacts that will eventually come with those.
You know,
'Cause
Brian,
what we don't,
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. My bad.
what we don't want to do is listen completely to the survey and say, okay, we're hearing a lot that we've got to stop development altogether, so we need to stop development altogether. That's an easy way for the township to get sued if it comes down to it, because we're then blocking a viable development opportunity.
Brian, to that, Jim, if I could jump in real quick. Brian, don't we legally have to offer all forms in the township?
We have to plan for and allow any reasonable use of land. Yes.
Jim,
Brian-
thanks for letting me jump in there, sir.
Oh, no, that's
Appreciate it.
fine. And Brian, all I wanted to add is just, a developer's looking 7, 10, 15 years down the road. A resident sees today and tomorrow almost the same. I remember there was a lot of discussion about, was it Legacy of Lion? You know where I'm talking about? The all brick $500,000 condos off of 10 Mile. What was the name of that over by Tanglewood? Can you help me out?
That's Legacy. Yep, right in.
Legacy. There was
this
a
square
lot
here.
of discussion about that, and those things sold out. Again, a developer is always, in my opinion, 7 to 10 years ahead of where sometimes I'll say I look at things, or the common person that lives here. So you're right. They do their homework. They're typically not wrong, and that's why that was somewhat of a mixed residential use, just as you said, and it probably will continue to be that if we try to continue to build a downtown. Watermark, people probably think they're crazy too, charging $1,700 a month for rent, but I think this is what some of the younger demographics want, the kids. That's all I wanted to say.
Well, and I think your point kind of dovetails with mine, Jim, in that,
I agree. Yes, absolutely.
if we know that these things are going to help make us successful in the long term,
Yeah.
then we should plan to help minimize some of the things that we know are going to be issues. You know, one of the things that we heard with Coyote was Milford Road already can't handle the traffic that's there. And so anything that develops along that corridor is going to have to help minimize any traffic concerns. And so, you know, we can write this plan to say, you know, here's our list of uses that we think fit here and make sense here. But those people are going to have to help us improve the infrastructure to get people through New Hudson.
Absolutely.
To get up to the
Exactly.
freeway.
Yeah, good point.
Exactly.
Brian, what's your definition, or what's the township's definition of success? You're talking about looking at success, working with these developers. What, I guess I'm unclear what the end game is. I know we talk about builders looking 10, 15 years. I mean, that's our job, looking 10, 15, 20, 25 years into the future. And it's not always to appease the developer either. So I guess give me a definition of success. How will we know? Let me ask it this way. 10 years from now, how will we know we made the right decision?
That's what I want you to tell me, Mike. I'm going to pass it right back to you.
That is a tough question. But Mike, I understand what you're saying. And yeah, I don't think we just do things to appease them. That's a good question though, Mike. I think, how do you measure it? I think jobs, amenities throughout the community, new liquor license, which brings people, which brings restaurants. I mean, that's how I see it. And I'm just a citizen. That would be my take on it. That's all.
Mike, I think
Yeah.
the survey that Brian just did, when we get good results, you know, and a lot of, one of the issues since I've been on the board is density, right? Everybody's worried about density because we can't fix the road until we get tax dollars, tax base, and then we fix things after it's a problem and we have cash to do it. But if we know the people are happy in moving here because there's a rural feel and we've taken care of this corridor, if we're going to be building in Coyote to get that traffic through there, if we plan and do that, we'll know that by people wanting to move here because the infrastructure is good, schools are good, parks, the sidewalk. I mean, all that stuff is that's how we'll know.
I mean, my understanding is, Patty, jump in if you know any different, but we're gonna top 20,000 people. And I believe 10 years ago for the 2010 census, we were around 14,000. Is that pretty accurate?
We're 11,000.
We were 11? Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, but we think it's going to be close to 20. Remember, we should have already had our census figures. But now it got delayed because of COVID, and now it got really delayed. And I think Tina wrote a letter to the state, you know, telling them that, you know, you really got to get this not only for our revenue sharing, which is going to increase substantially, but really it is just like you said, for the, you know, we're going to obtain quite a few liquor license, which does attract restaurants and businesses, and we have people that are waiting for them. So, you know, they're kind of delaying, you know, that also. So, I mean, I hope they kind of get going on it.
And I guess that would just be, Mike, I guess that'd kind of be another measure of success. And obviously we've done some good things, and, you know, now we go into a new decade, so to speak, as it relates to census. But God, we've led the state, I think, 3 years in a row in new housing. And, you know, it's not all about development. I understand that, but I think those are some of the signs of success, to Kurt's point. I mean, I don't know of any other way to really measure it, but that's a good question, the way you posed it.
Another part of that is what Tina was doing with the downtown development, that getting restaurants and trying to make that to copy Northville and Plymouth in maybe 20, 25 years out, to make it where we can walk and people want to go.
I
Coffee
hope they have a
shops.
lane for wheelchairs if it's 20 years.
You better go to Plymouth right now then, Jim.
No, it's all good things.
For our kids and our grandkids, we got to.
There you go. That I'll go along with that, Kurt.
Well, I think along those lines, so, to tie up Milford Road, at least for this evening, we've got one user who's, in my view, improving their operations, right? It's still a potential barrier to some development around it. But I think success to me looks like, how can we integrate that with some additional new development in this small corridor? It might be that we have some apartments or townhomes right by the trail and use that as a really nice amenity, and transition that into some office uses or other things that can make these properties develop in an acceptable way, rather than regulating them so tightly that nothing is going to get built. Nothing can help us transition from the current uses to something valuable to the township in the future. So to me, I guess I'd like to see something along there, and I'd like to plan in a way that minimizes the barrier that Continental poses right now. I guess that would be success to me.
I got a question for Patty.
Yes.
In the survey, they talked about what people like to see, possibly acquisitions of property for parks or open space. Has Walbridge done anything? They may have or may not, I don't know, done anything with the township as far as property where the township was able to either given to the township or offered to the township at a substantial discount?
Why are you smiling, Patty?
I wouldn't even think they would suggest that. They're not very easy to deal with, unfortunately. They wouldn't even, we had to pay for an easement. They wouldn't even give us an easement. It's very, Walbridge is very interesting.
Was it Elko who gave the property for the park at Milford and 11?
Yes, we got that in the in that whole development. But remember, that was over 500 homes. They're still waiting to develop the last section. They unfortunately they got that approved right when the downturn came. So he still is working in Elko Farms. Look at it. I mean, it's taken forever. He does like 5 houses at a time. Just builds the road, just enough, and does his 5 houses, and then builds the road. And so finally we had to kind of put the hammer down. So it's not good for the road. It's not good for people. People living in there, they've lived in that subdivision like 13, 14 years, and it's still not finished. So you constantly have the truck traffic and the construction traffic, and he didn't finish the parks, and so it's really not good.
And the road gets tore up that they did 7, 8 years ago, 10 years
It's been a mess. I mean, okay, I can't tell you how many times I've gone out to that sub looking at it. It's just difficult. But yes, he had given us that park, and then we put the back part of it in a conservation easement because it's all wetlands.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I want to say it's like a 60-acre park, maybe that big. And then like 40 of it's in conservation easement, and the rest is, it's not usable land. And the part we wanted to do the park on is, you can see it. That's 20 acres of upland. but it still floods. So until we get the drainage fixed, we can't continue with our park right now. We're not giving up. We're not giving up. So,
And Mike, on a smaller note, I made reference to it every year in March, over 400 businesses in the area between the city as well as the township send out an ask letter to help support our kite festival. They've never given a penny. And
Is that right?
we have great support from businesses, small and large, in this community, and they've never given us a penny. So, yeah, I believe they wouldn't be too willing to give us land.
I have a question, just because every time I've driven by Continental, I haven't noticed an odor. But is there a certain time of day, or is it just hit or miss?
we just met with them. And I mean, they have improved their, I don't know exactly the proper wordage, but Brian might be able to help me. You know, they have improved and contained a lot of their odor.
Not sure what you're talking
And for Continental Aluminum.
Yeah, they added scrubbers like I forget, air quality scrubbers to get rid of some of the smell and things like that. They've made a lot of changes over time.
I'm kind of, the reason I ask is I'm kind of in line with you, Brian. It's every time I hear anything about the Walbridge property, it's not usable for residential, or it's not suitable because of the odor. So I'm in the same crossroads as you, just thinking, is it smarter to extend something where you have a few more businesses down there and extend that downtown district just a hair south, and because it's right there? Because once you pass all that, then there's what? Nothing. It's all residential all the way down to 10 Mile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess you've got Abbey Park and the daycare along Milford, but you're right. In general, it's all residential. The library. So, but what I do think, and I'm sorry I stopped sharing, but I do think this portion, I guess, right by the number 10 here, makes sense to be some sort of research or light industrial, or something along those lines. From a land use perspective, you can still transition to more commercial or even straight office type uses along Milford Road, and then send all of this traffic out to South Hill. I think that makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense to me. And then
I agree.
And you have similar ties coming down some of these side streets where we've got current small industrial buildings. From a continuity standpoint, it makes a lot of sense that this stays industrial so long as there's a good buffer right here. So that's my thought.
I'm with you.
Okay.
It's a good plan, good thought.
Okay, well, I've got a couple other spots on the map. I don't know how much longer you want to go this evening. I'm happy to call it a night, and we can go through some of these other districts later. We can keep going, whatever the board's pleasure is. Or in the meantime, you have this information, you have my thoughts on focus areas. You could each individually mark up the map or make comments and send those to me, and I can compile them and bring them back the next time we talk about this, if you'd rather do that as well.
Motion to adjourn.
Well, I just wanted one question first, Jim.
Yeah, that's funny, Carl.
Brian,
I just said, hey, I'm willing to call it a night, but go
Yeah.
ahead. Yeah.
Brian, how would mixed use with the light industrial fit into that section? on the Walbridge property. Going all the way down into Coyote.
I may be using the term mixed use a little differently than we're used to. Mixed use to me is not just business on the first floor, residential above. Mixed use to me is getting creative about the horizontal uses that we're doing. And when I say horizontal, I mean businesses next to one another. So
I
you know,
agree, but I think that would be a good creative spot. You know,
yeah,
to
I
see-
think there's
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of interesting things either going on or not going on, and they're interesting because nothing's going on this frontage. But we know that it seems pretty clear just from the comments tonight what your intended character is for Coyote. We know that we want small and walkable north of the trail. So what that transition looks like here is, I think there's a lot of flexibility, whether it's maybe townhomes are appropriate, but maybe a live work situation is appropriate. We're transitioning north to south as well as west to east a little bit, knowing that Walbridge has some plans for the rest of this that are probably going to move forward pretty quickly. So now it's not for us to design exactly what those look like, but kind of defining the transitions is going to be important, and defining the scale of those buildings is important. And really focusing on the use as well. I know
Okay.
that's a non-answer, Carl, but
No,
I-
no, it isn't an answer. I just want to make sure that I was on the same page as you, and I am. And I like that, and I think that'll get us a more of a less of a traffic burden, being able to improve that road with some of these developments, the frontage, making that corridor shine. And we're gonna have to put thoughts into how we're gonna make that look, how we want it to look. Because if we put it in the master plan and somebody can look at it and say, okay, I could fit my business there, I could do that there, and it's available.
Mhm.
So I think it's a win-win.
we had a
That's
call.
Yeah,
We
it's
had
only
a call
question.
from, okay, we had a call from somebody through MEDC who was interested in like a business incubator. And I thought that would kind of be an interesting use if they housed some of their startups, and they housed people who are working on the startups. How cool would that be to have some small apartment buildings, and then they walk down the street or walk to the back to the Walbridge property and go start their business over there.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things are cool, and I think we have the ability to at least put that on paper for this area. Be a little creative there. So
Okay, cool. That's gonna be my thinking cap for tonight. That's it.
okay. Well, okay, so then if you guys don't mind, if you have some free time and want to either call me during office hours or mark up the plan, let me know what you're thinking in terms of uses. I'm happy to incorporate those and bring them back when we talk next.
Okay.
Good. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, guys.
Brian,
Patty, did you have any?
I already gave my report, so.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right. Cool. Anything else? Who had 8:05?
I did.
Liar. All right. Well, if nothing else, motion.
Well, I already made that. We need
Oh,
a support.
Support,
Motion, Mr. Check. Who supported? I didn't hear.
Patricia.
Patricia. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose?
Have a
Right,
good
very
night,
good.
y'all.
Hey,
Night, everybody.
yeah, everybody at the Kite Festival.
Good
Come on up
job,
and join
everybody.
us.
Thank you, everyone.
Night.
Thanks, everyone.
Night.